welcome to the show, Supple.
Flexy Studio,
brother. Please introduce yourself to the viewers.
Yeah, I'm Supple Nam, or Supple as people that are close to me call me. Me and Stu, we go back in 2000. That was the first time I came to the UK, and I've been here ever since. So
me and Supple met in Leicester Square in, I think it was 99. But in 2000 we danced. Was it 2000 you came to the UK?
No, I came in 99. Very good memory. Very, very good.
I remember it was with Blemmer, Hadjul.
Yeah.
I think it was Blemmer and Hadjul who introduced me to you, and we were outside the cinema there in Leicester Square. And I think you were just fresh off the boat from Australia, but you ended up dancing with us in the Scarecrows, and we represented the UK. And one memory that I have, clearly of you, is in Funky P, you smoking me in the circle. I remember I was Larry in them days, you know, Irish boozed up. And for a stupid reason, I decided to challenge the Supple. And you ran off the wall, done a backflip, into a split, into my face, offered me the wall. And I went, sorry. So thank you for humbling me in the circle like a real G does. But I can run off the wall now, trust me. Like now I got it. But in those days, I didn't have that move. But if you hadn't have smoked me, I wouldn't have worked on it. So thank you.
Oh, bless you. Bless you. It's really interesting because my version of meeting you, I saw you and I knew of you as a strong contender in the scene, you know, and you know, and it's so to me, you know, when I met you, I felt that I needed to kind of pronounce that I've arrived, kind of thing, you know, like just as a sign of respect. I guess to me, in the most complimentary way, you know, you were a little bit intimidating, you know, just mainly because, you know, you were a very skillful dancer, you know, and you had a lot of kudos, you know, but then at the same time, you also had this kind of like hard shell, you know what I mean? Like just how some people have, you know, and I felt like, okay, you know, let me just, you know, give it my all and see if this guy, you know, can give me some props, you know? So at the end of the day, the way I did it was he's either gonna like what I present or he's gonna like tell me where to go, you know? So I'm glad that your response was good.
Well, Boogie, I was trying to tell you that Supple not only was a battler, like in the crew with us and in the circles in the clubs, but he also transitioned to one of the top casting agents in the UK and Europe, and he got me my first movie gig on Ali G in the House.
Yes,
you know, a funny story, and we did a few commercials together and whatnot. But you know that Ali G movie, right? Do you know how many people called me up and told me they were representing me? And I was like, but Supple called me on this gig, and at least 3 other people phoned me and said, yeah, I'm representing you on this gig. And I was like, but I got the call from Supple, and that kind of gangsterism of that, like, you know, who's gonna like, you know, it was very much an industry that I was unprepared for coming out of Rombear, and the way that you've been able to like remain a street dancer, but also be like at the top of that industry is very impressive. And that's one of the reasons why I really wanted you to meet Boogie, because Boogie is from the OG West Coast, but also movies, commercials, like everything.
Well, you know what? He's taken everything by storm. That is quite a leap to go from what he did to casting director. Oh my gosh. And the reel that you have, sir, I just have to tell you, you're fantastic, man. I'm just like honored to meet you. And I'm so glad to meet another brother in the art that is like, I mean, you're still, I mean, hoofing, and you're still fairly young and you have your whole career ahead of you. I'm just totally impressed. I almost don't know what to say.
Oh, God. Well, thank you. I had this hunger and this focus, I guess. I felt like I was a sponge, and within that, you know, I think the thing that got me to where I am now and continuing on is that I never. I always saw everything as a learning opportunity, and I always believe that, if you want to, be amongst the best, you got to surround yourself amongst the best. And if you, and within that, you got to do your utmost best to kind of prove yourself there, and then within that, of course, you got the whole journey of being humbled, knowing your time and space, and approach, and I guess, it's really interesting because when I first came to the UK, I was blown away with the level of talent that was in immediate access. I came from Australia, as Stu mentioned, and
Right. Right.
and everything that I saw in the UK was literally what I saw on TV. So it was kind of like mind blowing. So, I have come to the States a few times. Within within a nice surprise, I've been asked to work on a few jobs as a director and as a choreographer in music videos, primarily. I've worked with other production companies on adverts. And there was a little opportunity, a window of an opportunity, which I still hold onto, was the Oscars called me to be involved in one of the title sequences. It was on the year that La La Land won so many awards, but just pre the tip off, the discussion was with me to see if I could maybe get involved with the Oscars. But then, of course, because La La Land ended up, dominating the ceremony, it made sense for them to recreate the beginning of La La Land with all of the celebrities. But still to this day, I can't believe how, something of that, of that scale could kind of be approaching someone like me,
Fantastic. I mean, you just like you're like a angel in this industry. There are a lot of children and a lot of people coming up, and what you said in the prior to this about your determination, just the drive that you have energy, this energy that keeps you going. That right there to me is the most important thing, because if you don't have that drive, nothing's going to come to you. You have to go get it, and you have to have it in your spirit to go get it. And you sure have, and you're still going strong. It's such a pleasure to meet you, man. I'm telling you. And I mean, it would be just an honor to be able to work with you and see you one day in action. I was on set watching you do your thing, because this guy, you told me about him, but I checked out the reels and I watched, and the more I watched, the more amazed I was. I was like, this guy, what can't he do? He's fantastic, I mean, from, just like, well, I'm saying like a dancer position to like running things. I mean, you just have a vision. And that to me comes straight from the Almighty. I mean, that's a beautiful thing.
The thing that really impressed me about Supple is Supple was a street dancer, like completely like forgive me if I'm wrong, you were untrained, right? You were self-trained.
Yeah.
I mean. But you weren't one style. If anything, I remember when I first met you in Leicester Square, you were doing like that Melbourne shuffle type stuff. And you were doing some of those kind of, I don't know what that stuff, we used to call that like rave dancing, but you were like of that genre, which was completely foreign to me at the time. And then you showed me, oh, you got locking basics. Oh, you can pop too. And you got breaking. And you're doing house. And you were doing this. That you weren't one style. You represented in the Scarecrows with us. You were more b-boying, but or like you were doing routines with Jerome. I remember like there were acrobatics and stuff. But that's the one thing that really kind of stood out to me is your ability to be a chameleon and to adapt, and also your ability to communicate with the people within the industry that weren't street dancers. you know, the directors and the choreographers that were predominantly of a different, older kind of genre. That, yeah, so that's the one thing that I wanted to ask you about that. In that, so what are you then, man?
That's a good question, and I think, for first and foremost, I'm a dancer, and within that, it just so happens that my ability to be acrobatic, flexible, and very diligent within what I see, and wanting to kind of respect that. It's kind of how my brain kind of works, So, in some ways now, I guess, without adding a strong pun here, Supple, which is my nickname, because my real name is Guillermo Martin. It kind of suits my style, because flexible, and flexible in many in many styles,
right.
Being very beautiful, So I guess in that way, what am I? Like, to be honest, when I dance, I am, I've got a strong influence of martial arts. I've got a strong influence of theatricality, and b-boying. B-boying is something that I've always been very, very passionate about. But then, of course, within that, I was brought up within the dance street culture. So, b-boying wasn't something that I first learned. It was actually something that I learned very much later in my development of my career. As a dancer, I first just started off as a street dancer, as a party dancer, really. I just did all the party moves, back in the day of, when house party was around, all of the New Jack swing, like that was kind of like the era that I really dived in when I was a teenager, So, just seeing all of those guys, doing the jump splits, doing the Humpty Dumpty, doing the freezes. I never really saw breakdancing until maybe 4 years before I came to the UK. So that was 1995, thereabouts. And I got introduced to b-boying by a b-boy. Him and we met at a party. I then introduced him to a dance group. We did a lot of shows in nightclubs, in parties, in anything, in any way we could. And I guess I picked up b-boying very, very quickly, which then got a lot of attention from me, mainly because of my style back then in 95, 96, b-boying wasn't so much seen as a dance form where you would have so much musicality and character. The character was just in the basic steps, and you either came into power moves or actual steps. The musicality, like interpretation, wasn't so much explored, and that's something that I naturally did. And I guess that's where I turned a few heads, good and bad.
I can fully relate to you in that. My understanding of so many things were very limited in those days. But I've gone and like sort of done b-boying fundamentals in these last years, and like I still don't think that I got the basics of any of them. So I have to say that the Bruce Lee that you played there, mate, when I saw that on TV, and because there were so many times you've popped up when I've been living in the UK on the TV, I have to say I've been so happy for you, man, and like so very much like feeling that's one of my crew members there, because
proud.
We represented together in the Scarecrows. But I remember when we were rehearsing for it in Russell Square, I helped you and Jerome do that cartwheel thing where you were together. And I was and afterwards I thought, why didn't I do that with Supple rather than, and like, because me and you have never danced together. We've danced on projects together and against each other and with each other and all sorts. We've never done any choreography together. So that's what I want to put out to you. Like, anytime, any style, let me know what you need, man. I'm with you, man. I can't wait to dance with you, because Flexy and Supple should be going together. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, very much so.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Well, especially since seeing that we both lock, pop, break, and some classical training. That's one thing that I wanted to maybe ask you is, in all of your dealings with so many dancers and whatnot, have you, gone and done a bar, done your basics? Like, have you done any classical foundation? You've had to deal with a lot of trained dancers.
Yeah, no, definitely. Well, the thing is, at the age of, I think it was 16, 17, my mother got to understand that, I wasn't going to stop dancing. If anything, I was going to keep going. And so therefore she, back then we didn't have a lot of money, but she found out from a friend of mine who was my manager by default. He was like the leader of the dance group. He's the guy that introduced, he told my mother to see if I should maybe try to audition for a scholarship, which I ended up winning a scholarship at a ballet school, strangely or other. So that's where I got to learn, and literally dive in the deep end with all these classical styles of tap, contemporary, jazz, ballet, even studying the art form of choreography and direction and stuff like that. So I guess that's where my initial introduction to classical dance really came into form. But I very quickly interpreted and used the terminology and the formulas within classical ballet, jazz, how it was already formed, and translated that very quickly into the street dance. So everything that I learned, I took back to my friends. We rehearsed it. I workshopped it like a scientist. Try to work things out. Like, okay, there's a pas de bourrée, so clearly there are steps. Let us try to create some steps. And because a lot of the time, when you do, styles that are, that are very raw, it comes from a feeling, and a lot of dancers, when they freestyle, they don't really know what they're doing other than the fact that they're doing what they do, if that makes any sense. So when I got to try to bring all of that back to the streets, there was a lot of tension going on, when people would be saying, look, Subs, man, like, you're holding us back, why can't we just do what we do? And it all came down to me just understanding that, if you want to hit bullseye, you got to hit bullseye. And when the camera's rolling, you've only got a few chances. When the when the lights go on, you've only got that one time, and within that, of course, you got amazing freestylers. But then when you're training with them all the time, you see them, at their best and at their worst, and at times when I would see them perform, I would think to myself, it's a shame that they're not consistent. To my understanding, I know how good they are. The audience doesn't know how good they are. So therefore, whatever they do, the audience is going to be fine with. But that's through an uneducated eye. And me being naturally very ambitious and I guess a little bit calculating, I thought to myself, this actually encourages the industry to not understand that street dance at the time could be held in the same kind of plateau as any other genre. But, you know, because a lot of times people said, oh, you know, street dance is just for spinning around, you know, and stuff like that. They didn't understand that we needed to actually really warm up, you know what I mean? And if we wanted to, like, for example, do flares, you know, a lot of times, you know, b-boys, you know, they wouldn't train. No, they wouldn't warm up. They would just throw it and just do it, you know, while ballerinas and so forth, even though they'll be able to do their spins and the tours and their jumps and all of that kind of stuff, they would naturally do a few stretches and exercises before they were to go on, you know. So I try to reciprocate that. And I guess when a lot of people didn't really listen to me, because I guess I was very, very young, you know, and even though I might have been talented, you know, they just thought that, oh, who is this little kid? You know what I mean? Like, don't get him to tell me what to do. So I guess I just showed them that I became very consistent. So whenever I did my solos, you know, I would always kind of hit the nail on the head. You know what I mean? By doing the same thing, or sometimes giving it a little twist. Sometimes when that happened, I would get casting directors, agencies, directors, choreographers that weren't of my genre or of the street genre coming to me, and they would say, oh, I'd love you to just do your thing. And the first thing I would always say to them was, well, do you want to give me some direction so then I can, you know, serve your vision?
Right.
And they were always taken back. They're like, what do you mean? Why are you talking to me intellectually? You know, I just want you to, like, so to speak, spin on your head, you know, spin on your back, do a few flips. That's enough, you know, just be the show pony. And I'm like, yeah, I can be the show pony, but do you want me to flip consistently? Do you want me to, like, do aerial stuff? Do you want me to do floor stuff? Do you want me to spring of anything? And they'll be like, oh, okay, well, now since you mentioned it, there's this and that I'd like you to do, you know. And then within that, I encouraged people to then teach me. So then when they were the choreographer of a contemporary or of a jazz routine, I would say, let me just be a backup, you know. So I started learning all of these routines, voluntary, and then within that, because I had a lot of energy, I don't think you know, a lot of people would now say, oh, they've got ADHD, but I didn't have ADHD. You know, I was just like a bouncing ball with a lot of drive. I would then do the routines with the dancers, and then I would ask them if I could give it my twist. And that's when I started fusing jazz with b-boy steps, locking moves, popping shapes. And they'll be like, oh, okay. And then I started teaching it to them. And I guess that's when things started kind of naturally growing. And then I guess within a few years, you know, I guess reputation kind of just kind of took over, you know. But that part didn't really come strategically. I guess it just naturally happened. And then lo and behold, people started asking me to choreograph or asking me to do this and that. And then it actually takes me to the next thing on how I got Stu to do the Ali G film, because another thing that I wanted to also bring two worlds together was the authentic street dances and street culture into the TV. Because at the time, Stu, as you know, when we met in 1999, you know, and people were dancing to Alpha Dodger, Craig David when he first came out, you know what I mean, all of that kind of stuff, you know, they were using a lot of, you know, jazz dancers to do all the b-boy stuff, you know, or all of the locking and the popping, you know. And I would always think to myself, but I know the real guys, so why can't I bring them in, you know? And the only thing that stopped or scared the choreographer was, one, the intimidation, because they didn't want to feel like they were, they didn't know what they were doing, because they always felt like I'm the choreographer, therefore I am the teacher, in an old school way, even though that mental approach has changed, but yes, so I wanted to really encourage the authentic hip hop heads to take the limelight, and within that, because I understood their vocab and I could understand the culture and the temperament, because as we all know, in the streets, we do have a certain temperament of understanding certain things. I became, I guess, the interpreter, and then that's how things came together.
I certainly think you did an amazing job of it, and the difference in the world there from that transition from that late 90s into the 2000s that you were fundamentally part of was really giving the street that status that it hadn't really had beforehand, in exactly like how you were explaining. The real street kids were only brought in to do some flips or spinning on their head, and that there was a switch where in the early 2000s suddenly locking, popping, breaking, everything street became cool again. So you were massively part of that movement, and I think that's because you had that ability to bridge the gap between so many different worlds. So really, there's a lot of professional street dancers now that owe you a thank you.
Oh, that's nice.
Good point.
That is nice. Like I guess I just wanted to give everyone an opportunity, because I felt very privileged to get an opportunity, and I felt that I was surrounded by more talented individuals than I was, and at that time I wasn't about the money, if anything, I was maybe about the business in regards to iron sharps iron, if that kind of makes any sense.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's the right terminology, so the way I saw it was, if I can be, because I remember, because a very simple example, because during that time, as I was a street dancer, Stu, but I think some guys were also confused by going, "Oh, Supple is like an agent, but he's not really an agent." And I remember, I don't know if you remember the way I brought you in to that office. I met you and a whole bunch of other cats.
Which office?
At the station.
Oh, the break station. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It was actually at Shepherd's Bush. I don't know if you remember correctly. And I remember I met you and everybody else. You remember Hatim and his and all of his cats. I think the Twilight plays were already established. So of course they didn't. They were. At a different place, but I brought you in. I brought Agile. I don't know if Agile Bones, all of those guys. You know what I mean? And we all came into the office like an army. You know what I mean? And as soon as we walked in the office, and I remember the woman's name was Sharky, the casting director. She literally stood back, going, "All right, the real McCoys have arrived," kind of vibe, and we weren't trying. We just were who we were. We were street kids, authentic. And everything she saw was like, "Oh my God, you guys are dressed how I want you to dress. You guys act the way I want you guys to act. You guys have the diversity." Yes. So I guess that's just how it all happened. And from there, I kept on using that same formula for a lot of other auditions and castings where we used to like gate crash, those things. Like nowadays, there's none of that, And I'm sure, Boogie, you probably experienced similar, in your part of your world, because back then, I don't know about you, Stu, but America was kind of seen as like this kind of like
pinnacle.
kind of holy land of like the top of the top, and whether whether we were in par or not, I always saw that you guys were ahead of the game, so I was just always
I have to say there was a certain amount of power, being who we were at that time, because we were one of a kind, each one of us, and all together collectively we were like a force, and I know you guys know that feeling of having a position in a group, the strength that, it feels like strength. It's a power that you have, and when you're at the top of your game, and that you're one of the very few in this group to say do a breakthrough type of thing, or do a first commercial of this, or first movie of that. It is empowering, and it's a great feeling. And I have to go back and say, I wanted to mention that the scholarship that you got, the first scholarship that you got, was a blessing, because scholarships are important, and I wish that there were more here. I wish there were more all over the country, because it gives a child a chance to explore their creativity at the same time that they're taking out music and art from schools. I mean, it is beautiful that people would get together and offer scholarships for children in every area.
And I feel like even now, like I still try to encourage street dancers to make it to the artistic kind of approach. Like, so there have been many times where, like, for example, I don't know if you saw on my show reel, there's an advert that I did for Honda, which is all like, if you see it, it's just like close to 100 people just walking, in grey suits. And within that, I really encourage to get a lot of like poppers, and lockers to come to that audition, because I feel that their understanding of body control and awareness, is something that needs to be seen and needs to be absorbed, because I did. A lot of people say, "Oh, just get jazz dancers, get ballet dancers." They seem to understand the body and movement the best. But I said, no. I feel that a lot of, I think we should open it to a lot of hip hoppers. And I remember, inviting people like, Sean, who, and a lot of other greats, poppers that are around now, and the only reason why some of them didn't quite get it was because there was a criteria, as when it comes to specific size and height and measurement, because we needed to build an army of 100 people, and within that, the obvious formula that came to the director's attention while her and I were exploring all options was, we want to fill the camera with as little people as possible, but with the biggest impact. So what is that? So then we naturally thought we need tall people, we want big people, big frame people, so then therefore, unfortunately, a lot of the 5'4" lovely dancers had to be scrapped. They would always say, "Oh, let's get someone of this look or of this ethnicity or this and this and that, and let's get them to learn the steps." But then I always say to them, and I always put it back on them and saying, "Look, you're only as strong as your weakest link." So I always say that, and I always get them to reset. I said, when you came up with this idea, was it the talent that got you excited, or was it a specific look that got you excited? And a lot of the times when they approach me is, of course, because of the talent. So then they always go back and they say, "Oh yeah, it was the talent." And then they said, "But the look is very important." And I said, "Yeah, but make sure the reason why you got me was to get the talent to really shine. So therefore, I'm speaking for the talent.
Right.
And, and then when sometimes they say, we'll still go with the look, I will always say, you're as strong as your weakest link. So just know that when you were on set and you're wondering why that girl is not looking right, she's doing everything correct, but she's not looking right. It's because you chose them, not me. So it's that kind of vibe, and I feel that I've been able to like speak about it in a very soft, respectful manner, and I guess now with being in the industry for so long, and even though as you said, I may look young, my credits shows that I'm not that young, you know what I mean?
Right.
So I'm very grateful that people are able to take me on board and listen to me,
That's fantastic.
You see why I invited him on, Boogie? I was telling you, like, he's a real one. He's certainly a real one.
Man, you know what? I got the chills. I keep getting the chills, and that's confirmation that, you're very special, and it's a pleasure to meet your spirit, because it's soul to soul right now. And I'm saying, bro, you got this. That's just, I want to see more of you in the future. That's all I'm saying. I want to see more.
You still keeping fit? You still supple? You like?
I train. Like I was training today. Trained yesterday. I've actually just got off my regular regime, but my usual regime is to get up first thing in the morning and do my 1 or 2 hours of exercises every day.
You hear that, guy? 1 or 2 hours.
That's why he still looked like Bruce Lee. He cut, man, ripped.
So are you, Stu, man. I've seen your stuff, man. You're still doing it. Like the stuff that I saw you do recently, that handstand, lotus position. Boy, you still.
Thank you. I've been working on that for a while, mate. And it was actually Boogie that made me cut that one. She was on the phone to me, and I was like, the weather was, I'm gonna cut it. So, but that's the thing is that when I've been training alone, the interaction, even just on the WhatsApp to Boogie, that's what made me do that lotus handstand. And this interaction with you, it's the thing is that we're nothing as solos. Like the thing is that collectively is everything. That the thing is I like to say to some people sometimes is, if you're seeing something shit in my dance, that's actually Stu. If you're seeing something good, that's the people who are around me, mate. That isn't me. That's the community.
Oh man, beautiful. That is beautiful. And you know what? He's right. We do feed off of each other, and it could just be, it's all one move. I keep saying that, but people don't get it sometimes, but it is. We are all one thing. It's up to our choices every day. When we wake up in the morning, we have a choice. Okay, so you woke up on the wrong side of the bed. All right, don't let that be your whole day. You know what I'm saying? Like, back on that happy train, and you keep going, and you got to fight for it these days. People will come at you at every way, shape, or form to bring you down and make you like, oh, I don't feel like doing it. But you know what? You have to fight that. It's a daily fight. And you know what? Breathe through it, go through it, and just know that it's coming. And that's the best advice, I guess. I always ask people what their advice would be for young people coming up. That's mine. My advice is to these people coming up and new artists and new people that want to get into this industry. Don't let anything stop you. Do not compete with other people. Compete with yourself. Do better than you did the day before, and you'll be great.
Just like in this conversation, do you know how many things have come to me of memories with you, man? And I'm like, oh, should I share any of these or not? I don't know, man. But I remember, like, for
Please do. No, honestly, I think that's the lovely thing of that we've had real connecting moments. Like, if I can start it off, Stu, I remember, you and I, we would sometimes meet randomly, as we all did in clubs, or sometimes I remember, like, someone would say, oh, yo, Stu is at that club right now. And I'm like, I was at Oxford Street and you were in Soho. I'll head over to Soho and then I'll just rock up. And I remember sometimes you and I would sometimes meet, or you'll be with other people. And the first thing that we would always do, which I think was a sign of respect, was more like, am I gonna battle you tonight? You know what I mean? Like, and it was great because even though, and it was this thing. And I remember this one time, I don't know whether I came to your space by pure coincidence. And I remember looking at you and I'm like, all right, great. And then we would just be like boogieing down, and sorry for the pundit boogie, but we'll be like just dancing away. And then all of a sudden, as it naturally happens, a little circle will start, coming alive. And then the next thing I know is that Stu looks over his shoulder, looks at me. I look at him and I'm like, no, don't step up to me. And then you step up. And like, oh, you know what I mean? Like, and those are the lovely moments that I remember. I remember those things, and I also remember how talented you were. I remember I thought that you were very unique, Stu, because your amazing discipline of ballet that you had, you were literally a ballerina that was also an amazing locker. And
what a
and
wonderful combination.
And you add that and you flip it. But I always remember when you would do it, inside me, I always wanted to encourage you. But because of where I was, I could, I didn't think it was my place to voice that out to you. But I always admired how you were experimenting on that. And it was a shame. Just like a lot of us, you were very hard on yourself, just like a lot of us were. And within that experiment, sometimes you will get it right, but a lot of times, like we're experimenting, you get it wrong. And that I would sometimes see it in your eyes that you would be disheartened to keep on experimenting. But that's something that I always admired. And that's something that I always thought to myself, wouldn't it be lovely if I could actually get you on a gig to combine those two together, but that never happened.
Well, you got me on certainly plenty of gigs. I even just am remembering that. And first, thank you so much for the kind words, brother, man. I can't really speak on it, but you did get me plenty of gigs. I just remember the Samsung gig that you got. I don't have that. I never see that one. There was a Samsung phone commercial that you did. And there was another one that was really kind of, it was for Singing in the Rain. And there was a callback. I didn't end up getting that, but in the callback, I walk into the break station, and in the room is Supple, a camera, and Paul Guzman-Sanchez from Chain Reaction. And I'm like, what's going on here? And they're like, yeah, you two are the callbacks. It's between you and him. Let's go. So I basically round for round have to battle cool pockets, which for me was an honor. I mean, but also like the pressure, and he went hard. He wanted the job. But yeah, man, there are so many. I mean, there's so many things I can remember. I remember being in the hood, like in South London, which is pretty much the equivalent of South Central LA for London, and all of these ghetto kids being like, "Yeah, have you heard of Supple?" Everyone was talking about Supple. All these kids, your name, brother. There's so much that I could say. But we're coming on an hour, and I just I really want to end it by saying God bless you, man, for who you were then, and for who you are now, man. Your consistency and the fact that you were always so beautiful, it's inspiration. And one day I hope to be more like Supple. Flexy Studio. Flex.